Thank you very much indeed. There's a real incentive to going forth. You get the slides to work. So thank you to all three who have gone before. Please don't be worried about mass fatalities and disasters. That's not why I'm involved in this project at all. It's an entirely different reason. I came to Lancaster 16 months ago, only 16 months ago. And a number of people who said to me, why on earth would you go to Lancaster? And the answer is, why not? And they don't have an answer to the why not. It's an incredible place, an utterly incredible place. And I can honestly say that in the 16 months that I've been here, I've felt very much at home. And one of the projects that's helped to make me feel at home is this, because it thinks big. I'm not the kind of woman who thinks small. I like to think big. And you know, when I arrived at Lancaster, there is a very sobering thing that I do whenever I go to anywhere for the first time. And I call it my taxi driver test. And the taxi driver test is you get into a taxi, you ask the driver a question, and they assume if you've asked a question that you want to hear the answer. And you have the duration between when you get into the taxi and when you get out to the taxi. And if it's a long journey, do you know, it can be a very long journey. And when I came for an interview at Lancaster, I asked the taxi driver, what's the relationship like between the university and Lancaster and Morecambe? And I expected them to say that it was a really strong town and gown. Do you know what they said to me? So I'm going to give you, these are his words. He said, university. Aye. It's not in Lancaster. It's outside Lancaster. Woo, that was a surprise. It's up on a hill. And you can see all the images, can't you? It's not in Lancaster. It's up on a hill. I don't know what they do there, but you know, they must be awfully clever. And you know, they've got a shed load of money, which is not true. But what that says, and it is part of the way in which Lancaster has grown up as a university, it was removed from the city. It was given a tract of land outside the city. It was isolated in its rural environment, and it was allowed to get on with being a university. And it did it exceptionally well. And when I arrived, one of the things I said was, we need to have a much greater civic responsibility. Because if you're an anchor institution in a community and you close your doors, then everybody feels the ripples from that. And that tells you as an anchor institution, not only do you have a responsibility to run your own business well, but you also have a responsibility to make sure you run it well for the community in which you operate. So when I arrived, two members of our senior member of staff, long before I even had an inkling of Lancaster in my eye, went down to Eden. And these two gentlemen said to the project in Eden, have you ever thought about coming north to Lancashire? Have you ever thought about coming to Morecambe? And one of the first things that I've done in almost every presentation since I've been at Lancaster is to remind people that we're not the north. There's a shed load of north of Lancaster. And do you know what's really interesting? What's really interesting is when you look at the geography of our beautiful isles, the geographical centre of the UK is Lancashire. The genuine epicentre of the UK is Morecambe. We are the middle and the heart of the UK. And in fact, it's a red heart, because it's a red heart associated with our sovereignty as well. So in terms of our history, in terms of our currency, why would you not do this in Morecambe? It is the centre of the UK. And to know where you're going, you have to know where you've come from. And it's why it's really important that we know about our history. But what we can't afford to do is to be tethered by our history. It can't be a millstone around our neck. It is who we are, but sometimes we need to move on from it. And moving on from it may look something like this. When the Eden Trustee Board came up to Morecambe, one of the gentlemen took a photograph of the sunset over the bay, and he put it onto Twitter. And he said, "Where in the world do you think I am?" And back came the French Riviera, Rio de Janeiro, Goa. Nobody said Morecambe, but they will. Trust me, they will. Because when this iconic image, and it will be an utterly iconic image, goes around the world, which it will do, Morecambe will never be the same again. And to move forward, we have to be prepared to change. So what's a university got to do with this? Because when we look at Eden and Cornwall, the involvement of universities are fairly marginal. From the outset, we said at Lancaster University, we want to be right at the heart of this, because there's so much that we can do in relation to the cutting-edge research that goes on within the institution on so many different fronts. Oh, it's an interesting one. That's not what my slide looked like at all. Anyhow, so that what we are, and there was me boasting. Well, you know, that's good enough. However, so that in 2018, Lancaster University was the University of the Year in the UK. In 2020, starting from January, we are the International University of the Year. That's on the doorstep. We need to be proud of that. We need to be able to use that. And how can we use it? We use it in the areas in which the university has most strength. Part of that is in our research. We are leading in so many different ways in our research. We have world thinkers inside the university, changing the way the entirety of the world thinks about so many important projects. We have incredible education. And to our absolute shame, prior to me coming here, we had next to no involvement with Lancaster and Morecambe College. We do now. We have a terrific relationship with Lancaster and Morecambe College now, and it's only going to go from strength to strength, and you're going to hear about the incredible work that Wes is doing alongside Eden just a little bit later. And the third thing, which is why I'm here, is in relation to engagement. How do we take something that is a world-class institution and use it? Use it to the benefit of the communities in which we operate. That's what's engagement about. People say, what does engagement mean? Ladies and gentlemen, there's a very good reason why you get engaged before you get married. Engagement is about relationships. Do I like this person? Do I not like this person? Is this a one-night stand, or is this going to be a long-term relationship? And when it doesn't work, how do we end it? That's all engagement is about. And we're going through the most marvelous honeymoon period in relation to our relationship with Eden, in relation to all of our partners, including Lancaster and Morecambe College. We know there will be difficult times ahead, but any marriage that's worth its salt is worth fighting for. And if it was all easy, do you know, anybody would do it. So we expect there will be hard times. Oh yes, it's interesting. Okay. So that in relation to, bear with me, so that in relation to where we sit as a beacon in terms of our community partnership, it's about saying with an international university on the doorstep and other incredibly good universities and colleges and other institutions around us, can we work together, not in competition, but in collaboration? So much more is achieved if you work together than if you try to work in isolation for your own benefit. So that we know that working together in partnership, there are areas in particular, Morecambe is just incredible for it, where all of the kind of work that our university does, where we're recognized around the world, can all have a benefit in our local community. There's no point in having international aspirations if you don't actually practice what you preach in your own community. And that's what we need to be doing, and doing much more of. So what sorts of things do we do? Well, the kinds of things that we do is a huge amount in relation to our global planetary crisis. Areas in terms of what's happening in our oceans, what's happening to the extremes of our weather, wildfires, wildlife, crops, agriculture. Huge amounts of research, multi-million pounds worth of research going on looking at what's happening in different places around the world. Imagine if we turn that focus a little bit closer to home and we can say, how can Morecambe play its part on that international stage? Not just Lancaster University, but Morecambe and the area around here. If we're operating at an international level, then all of our partners can be as well. If it's not the global crisis, then maybe it's about clean energy. Is it that we have all of the natural resources that we need on this coast? And the answer is yes. So are we saying that in terms of sustainability, in terms of green energy, can Morecambe actually be leading the way in showing what a sustainable and green energy life looks like? Why not? What about our health? And we've just heard from Andy about some of the really incredible statistics associated with health in certain parts of our community. Imagine if we all made it our responsibility to think about not just our own health, but the health of others. Could we change the way that other people think? Could Morecambe actually become the healthiest and the happiest place to live? Maybe in the UK, but I don't think small. Couldn't we be the happiest place in the world? Why not? Why not? You've got to have an aspiration. And if they think we're in the French Riviera, why can't we feel as if we're in the French Riviera? So I genuinely believe that the kind of research that we do in a community with the resilience and the foresight that this community has, I think there's nothing that we can't do. There's nothing that's beyond our ability. What do we want our future cities and our future towns to look like? Well, maybe we want them to look like Morecambe. Maybe it's not Morecambe today. Maybe it's Morecambe tomorrow, or maybe it's Morecambe in a year's time. Why can't we be that beacon? Why can't we be the place where people say, that's where I want to go and live? Because do you know what they did? They found kindness. And I so support what Andy has said. There is not enough kindness in the world. If you look at what makes our headlines in the media, it's about things that are about fear, it's things that are about selfishness, it's things that are often about hurting other people. But you know, somebody's got to turn the tide on that. And what better place to turn a tide than in Morecambe? I have never felt so welcome in a community in such a short space of time. And that gives me great hope, enormous hope, that this is genuinely a magical place that can change people's thoughts and people's actions. The future could look like Morecambe. And wouldn't we be proud if that was the case? We have to think big. We mustn't be constrained by what we think we might be able to do. I hate boxes. Throw them away. Don't think outside the box. Get rid of the darn boxes. Let's think differently. Let's think smart. Let's think together. Think big, but we've got to dream even bigger. There has never been a better opportunity to do something like this. With the partners that we have, with the innovation that we have, with the sheer imagination that we have, if you can't do it here, you can't do it anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to change Morecambe. I want Morecambe to change the world. You can do that. We can do that if we do it together. There are points in history that we remember, And often they're points that we remember for bad reasons. We remember, those of us who are old enough, when Elvis died, don't we? Yeah, we know what we were doing. People who remember where they were when the Princess of Wales lost her life. People who remember where they were when the planes went into the World Trade Center. Can we stop linking our lives to things that are bad? Can we remember where we were when Eden at Morecambe was an idea and the moment that Eden at Morecambe became a reality? That's something to remember.